This is the test video. Yeah. I don't like saying test video because it's implying that we're not doing anything right now, but that's essentially what it is. The idea. Okay, I thought the recording button was counting backwards for some reason. I thought I only had a certain amount of time to record, but it is what it is. For those who don't know, my name is Dexter Dwayne, also known as the Execution Architect. It's a new title I just gave myself. I thought it would be cool. So I have been working on building a business, quote unquote, working on building a business for on and off for maybe like almost 7 years. And so one of the other things about, whatever we're doing here is that I want to be as transparent as possible, not necessarily go into the negatives and stuff like that, but it's really important to be as authentic as possible with where I'm at. I know it's real easy, especially on the internet, where you can basically frame everything exactly the way that you want it to be. You can present yourself the way that you want to present yourself. I like to present myself as the truth. That way, when you see good, you know that I'm not flexing and I'm not capping. That's what the kids say. And when you see the negative, you see those areas of growth, it's real. It's not me just putting on a show. So with all that being said, I started a concept like back, I don't even remember. I think this was like had to have been like 2016. I think I was in my baggy bag in 2016, but it was a long, long time ago. I started this brand, and the brand was called Project XIAM, pronounced Project XIM. And back when I started this brand, I really had this idea of community and personal development. That was basically what it was. For those who don't know, I'm currently serving in the military. So during my military tenure, in the beginning, they had this thing called basic training or boot camp or whatever you want to call it. And it was just a bunch of people from all walks of life come together and go through this training for about 2 months. And they go from a bunch of messed up stuff, which not necessarily messed up, but basically a bunch of people coming in with different strengths and weaknesses, ending this 2-month program being on one accord. So they still have their strengths and weaknesses, but they all are able to operate in a certain battle rhythm that leads them to a road of success, essentially. So that was my mentality. So I think it was like 1 or 2 years later after I graduated basic training, I was like, you know what? I feel like life should have something similar. So I was real big into personal development at the time too. So just took 2 and 2, Project XIM. So why XIM? So when I created that, the idea was it's like X marks the spot. And then the I am. So with these motivational videos, they would always talk about like, I am this, I am blah, blah, blah. They would go into like all of that. And it's like, wow, what if you don't know who you are? It's hard to keep pushing things if you don't know who you are. So, essentially I just said X, I am. So the X is figuring out who you are. So with that context, and then having the community aspect and then the personal development thing, all of that came together. And I was like, oh, Project XIM. But during this time, I was also struggling. Just trying to figure out, the dynamics of everything, just trying to figure out, life and what that's supposed to look like, financial stuff, what that's supposed to look like, relationships with uh, friends and family and community and stuff like that. Just trying to navigate all of that stuff, but still trying to take whatever this idea is and turn it into something special. So, I made a website, I made t-shirts, I got a logo and all these other things. And it's just people would ask me, they're like, what is this? And I'm like, I mean, I don't really know. I know the logo looked cool. I know like the idea and the concept looked great. But as far as what this is, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But I still wore the shirt. I still wore the hoodie. I was just like, man, like, give me something, one day this is going to be something special. And over time, I started connecting with a bunch of other people that were in the entrepreneurial space and stuff like that. And I was just like, man, okay, I think I'm at least getting close. I'm getting close to something. So whatever this thing that I've been holding on to, I feel like it's there. It might not manifest itself the way that I thought when I initially came up with the concept, but it is going to manifest itself in one way or the other. So again, like I would find myself in rooms that I felt like I shouldn't have been in a good way. I felt like it was like, wow, like people pay a lot of money to be here. I'm here for free because, people started seeing something within me that, I kind of saw in myself, but again, like, life will mirror your thoughts. So even though my life was looking a certain way, my thoughts were thinking a certain way. Basically, like it was polar opposites. It was like, man, I deserve it all. Like that new Kendrick song, I deserve it all. This, that, whatever. And then I also had, it's like, man, like I need to be working way, way harder. So it's just conflicting between those two. And even though I felt like I was working really, really hard, the results weren't necessarily showing how hard I worked, right? So it was kind of like I was working, I was a hard worker, but I wasn't a high earner. You know what I mean? Like basically I was just in this mix where I'm working real, real hard, but I'm not reaping a lot of rewards. So years go on. Fast forward, I end up just going through a couple different like personal development programs, stuff like that. I stepped away from it for a while, came back, stepped away, came back. And eventually I was like, you know what? I think it's time to like make this something again. I think it's time to build this, but like build it in a new way. Like it's still going to be like the core of it is still going to be there, but I think I need to present this in a different way because when you look at this particular brand, Project XIM, we don't know what that means. It's hard to sell. And not from a, hey, I just want to make money deal. Like I genuinely just want to help people. And, the only way to do that is to be marketable. So I picked up copywriting. I was like, man, let me learn copywriting real quick. And then I started networking with a couple of people. And I started seeing what they were doing. I was just picking their brains. And I was just like, man, I see what moves they're making. I see what they're doing. And I was just like, man, like, let me just take that. I'm going to borrow it. I'm just going to do those things. So I ended up taking all that. Eventually, I was just like, man, like, let me just design this going back and forth, back and forth. I mean, and also, a bigger help was being in the age of artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT. Well, literally just go in ChatGPT and I'm like, here are the concepts of like where I'm trying to go. I need you to like be as honest as possible, knock it back and forth. And essentially I used AI to coach me into building a new format, a new brand, sort of the new name, and make Project XIM, the idea that I had, into something that's actually going to be effective. So there were actually two problems with it. One, people didn't understand. And two, I wanted it to go on forever. So addressing the first problem, People didn't understand it. They look at the logo and they're like, yeah, that's cool, but they were confused. So it was hard for people to just be like, hey, it's hard to sell this because we can't tell you exactly what it is. But people were like, yeah, we want to be a part of it. But I couldn't tell them what it was because the X was the biggest part, like trying to figure out what it is, you know, and it's like a case by case basis. And two, when it comes to this thing wanting to last forever, at least for me wanting to say, hey, I want this thing to last forever, it's a project. It was supposed to be a project. It was always supposed to be temporary. So how do I take this, turn it into something that technically can exist forever without it being the main thing? So I went back to the drawing board and I rebranded. I said, these are the things that I want to do. I want to split them. I want it to be two, right? So I want the first part of my brand to be the face, right? And we're just going to call that Dexter Dwayne LLC at the time. I registered the LLC and I did nothing with it. The second brand was going to be Project XIM. And I was going to be like, hey, here is me for the corporate world, for all that other stuff. And then here's a lot more intense version, a lot more entertaining version. And if you fall down the rabbit hole where you find this, cool, you know, but it's not going to be like the main thing anymore. And I started building this website and I started rebranding and all this other stuff. And I was like, man, okay, this is close. So I kept working with AI. And eventually we decided the main brand is going to just be Dexter Dwayne. And then Project XIM is going to be treated as a project. And that project is going to be a course and it's going to, you know, essentially repeat. You know, people can participate in the project, but eventually that project ends and people are walking away with a better purpose, better sense of self, that type of deal. And as we were brainstorming the idea of how to make my name, right, Dexter Dwayne, more marketable, came into play. So I was like, what is it that I actually want to do for people? And I told ChatGPT, I was like, I want to basically take what I'm already good at, right? Because I'm a network engineer by trade, and I've just transitioned, or I'm making the transition into what they call a solutions architect, which is AWS cloud stuff. I was like, solutions architect. It's like basically just designing. As my job is developing into this new program, they put me into a position where it's like, hey, we come up with ideas and strategies and stuff. And I'm just like, man, I've already been on top of that. Like for the last 10 years, I've been taking a mess and I've been organizing it and I've been turning it into something else. That's all I do. You know, we turn it into a solutions. I architecting, you know, being an architect for solutions. That's all I've been doing. And I've been, you know, just going back and forth, just all that context. I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do, right? I want people to, whether it be in the personal development space or a business space or whatever, I want to take the way that I've trained my brain to look at stuff. And I want to help people navigate, because most people, and I've done a lot of research with like the DISC assessment and Myers-Briggs and stuff like that. Most people are really good at just doing things that people tell them to do. That's most people. There's a couple of people that are really good at coming up with ideas that aren't necessarily good at doing them, like myself included. Like I can come up with plans all day, but when it comes to executing, that's the part where I'm trying to grow. So with all that context, I was like, man, architecture, solutions architect, execution. I want to basically take people's messes, turn it into a plan, and then help them execute it. And so we started going back and forth, and we were just like, man, okay, goal, execution, architect. And then I was like, nah, well, I liked it. I liked where it was going. We started exploring that. And then eventually I was just like, I don't like goals. Like I like goals, but I don't like the idea of marketing myself as a goal guy, because goals usually mean, hey, I'm trying to aim for this thing and I aim it. I hit it and then it's over. And I didn't want that. So I basically said, we're just going to drop it. And that's where we came up with Dexter Dwayne, the execution architect. Basically coming up with the structure and then essentially just holding your hand through the process and make sure that you execute it well. And the whole thing is to have tiers, right? You have like kind of a, for example, right? Like the whole thing is like, okay, we've got free stuff. Like I still want to be growing those skills and, just helping out people for free. Like I don't mind doing that. I don't mind giving out information. I know myself on such a deeper level now to where I can, I just help people in that sense, right? But I'm also helping myself through the process of helping other people. And then you can have like, different tiers and stuff like that, products and services, and being like, hey, like if you need the one-on-one coaching, one-on-one calls, that it's not about the money part. It's just, how do I maximize the gift that I already have? So where does Project XIM come in? It's kind of like a Bruce Wayne Batman sort of deal, right? So you got the Bruce Wayne side, which is Dexter Wayne, the execution architect. That's easy to sell. And walk into the room, it's like, hey, that's the dude. yeah. Right. And then you have Project XIM, which is a program, which is a little bit more intense. It's a little bit more aggressive. It's basically hey, everything's a mess. I need structure and a foundation to build on. Because most people don't need that. Most people don't need to, find themselves. Most people are cool with where they're at. But you have someone who's just absolutely struggling, just doesn't really know anything about where they're at and all this other stuff. Like, this is the program that I want to design for them. And it's actually based off of another podcast and another program called 75 Hard. So just do these 5 things, which is drinking a gallon of water, doing 2 workouts, make sure one of them is outside, make sure you're following a meal plan, reading 10 pages a day, 5-minute cold shower, just doing all these things. And you do it for 75 days straight. And then once you're done with the 75 days, you merge into another phase of the program. Then you merge into another phase of the program. And essentially it's like, this is just the foundation you just do forever. And that's good on a physical sense because it builds those disciplines. And that's actually the program that I'm on right now. And I'm not doing any of this other stuff for Project XIM until I finish that program, because that's the biggest challenge. That's the biggest area of growth for me that I'm I'm working on, is the execution process. So again, going back to the name, execution architect, I don't want to keep calling myself that if I can't execute, I'm not showing it. So eventually just growing into the role that I'm creating. And so that's a bit of context of what we're doing here. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have nothing to lose. I spent the last 10 years trying to figure out how to solidify the 9 to 5. And I've gotten to a point where, you can always get a raise and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say, oh, I'm just comfortable. But I make a living wage now. It's like I can pay off my debts and stuff. Like once the debts and stuff are paid, I'll be okay. If this doesn't, pay the bills, like I still have a job. So, that's kind of an introduction on what it is we're doing here. I just thought it was really important to set the tone and at least kind of come up with like some sort of video that explains all of this. Because again, my biggest thing is just authenticity. consistency and really just being, transparent. Like I just want to be as transparent as possible because, again, like I said before, things go well, it's real. Things don't go well, still real. If it's a good year, it was a good year. If it was a not so good year, it was not so good year. But keep showing up every day and things tend to just work out. So anyways, yeah, I'm really excited. So, my next steps is obviously to like figure out how StreamYard works, because this is where I'm going to be recording my content, because it's a lot easier to save it to the cloud than it is to navigate through my desktop. So yeah, so that's honestly where I'm at right now, and we're just going to see how this whole thing goes. So until next time.